last left off, both the Todoroki brothers were in the sports festival, and when their mother saw their usage of One For All in action, the boys decided to tell her about the quirk One For All. It was the next day at school, and Izuku and Shoto were sitting down at their desks while everyone chatted about the sports festival and how they did. Suddenly, their chatting was interrupted when Aizawa entered with Midnight by his side, and they announced that they will be choosing their hero names, and then afterwards will be choosing the hero corporations that wants them in their facility. Everyone's names will be the same, and Izuku has already chosen his name, Shinmaku. Though most of his classmates would be confused, wondering why he would choose that name, Izuku would explain that a certain someone gave him that name who is no longer around anymore. After all was said and done, Izuku and Shoto had the most applications, but All Might suggested that they go to Gran Torino's. All Might notices that Izuku doesn't have a hero suit, and would ask him if he would want one, but Izuku would turn his offer down, saying that he can make a sort of armor suit with his ice. It just explains that it gives him more mobility. So after school, Shoto and Izuku would head to Gran Torino's, and Izuku says, "So what do you think this Torino is like?" "Well, I don't know. If he can help us on how to use One For All and, control it." He must know the ropes better than All Might does. Well, let's hope he does, because I can't always rely on the kiss of Sira to help us. Right. Soon, the boys make it to the building and in the poor side of town. Before the boys open the door, Izuku said, "Hang on. I smell ketchup, and a heavy usage of it, if you ask." "Yeah, I smell it too. Perhaps Gran Torino is on a lunch break at the moment. We'll introduce ourselves and let him finish his lunch." They open the door and sees a room which was dark, but when they look downwards, they see the old man lying on the ground with what appears to be blood next to him. I think he just may have dropped his ketchup, but let's just check on him just to be safe. The boys would then roll him over and look over him. He looks okay. He has a pulse. Yeah, and I've checked for stab wounds, bullet wounds, or any sort of blunt trauma to his body. I don't see any anywhere. Do you think we should call the police? I'm on it. As Izuku was about to call the police, Gran Torino started laughing and said, Okay, boys. At least you know the proper actions when you see a situation like that. But next time, you should call the ambulance first, and then look over the person. Izuku then said, "But wouldn't the operator ask us to look over the person before they send help?" You got a good point on that, kid. Gran Torino would introduce himself and would ask the boys how well they are with All Might's power. Izuku would go on to explain how he was able to use it once or twice during the sports festival, but was unable to use it again. They would also go on to say that, Wait, I already said that. I was about to say, they would explain how they used it during the sports festival. Gran Torino would say, "I saw that, and need I say, it was pretty reckless of you two. I can tell we got a lot of work ahead of us." Torino would go and tell the boys to try and catch him, explaining that he will be jumping off the walls, making it hard for them to do so. The challenge would begin, and Torino would start ricocheting from wall to wall, and the boys would try and catch him, only for Gran Torino to make a fool out of them and repeatedly knock them on their knees. The two boys then looked at each other and then nodded. As they close their eyes, they focus on Gran Torino's patterns. As they finally get the layout of where he's going to go next, they both manage to catch him at the same time. Torino was surprised that these boys managed to do something that no one else could. Good job, boys. But that's not how I wanted you to do it. I wanted you to use one for all. Just like how you accidentally did during the sports festival. Izuku says, but we don't know how we did it. It just happened. Well, you're going to have to figure that out for yourselves. Everyone who has ever taken on this quirk had their unique ways of using it. And it's up to you two boys to find out what that is. I'm sorry about the noise. Somebody's car alarm's going off. Anyway, I'm feeling pretty hungry. Shoto. Yes, sir. I want you to clean this place up, because whenever you're eating, you need a clean space. And what shall I do, sir? Asked Izuku. Izuku, you're going to go get some good food. There's a gas station a few blocks from here. Go there and go get me some fish pastries. Izuku runs off to the gas station, but he forgot to ask how is he going to pay for the fish pastries. Anyway, while walking back to Gran Torino's with the fish pastries in hand, Izuku had an unsuspected visitor. He was wearing a bartender suit with a head engulfed in what looked like purple flames. Izuku. He turns around, and he knows whose voice that belongs to. Korigiri. Izuku puts the food down, and he gets ready to have a fight. What do you want? Listen, I don't have much time. You need to know this. Right now, as we speak, All For One is trying to rebuild his army, and is trying to recruit Stain, the hero killer, and his quirk has the ability to stun anybody that he licks their blood. But he turned us down. He told us he plans to strike again soon. But why are you telling me this? Aren't you betraying All For One doing this? Korigiri pauses for a moment, and then he sighs. It's because I care, Izuku. After what I saw them, what they put you through, what Shigaraki, All For One, and his goons did to you, it wasn't right. It ate me up every night to hear your cries whenever you just needed someone to comfort you. Sadly, I couldn't do that without being suspicious. I want to make things right now. I just need you to know this. The mood then lightened up, and Izuku remembers the times when Kurogiri would sneak food or beverages to Izuku, just looking after him. And because of that, Izuku couldn't help but trust Kurogiri. Izuku wanted to ask him more questions, but Kurogiri spoke. I have to go. You stay safe out there, Izuku. He then teleports away, and Izuku went back to Gran Torino's and told him what Korigiri told him. Torino would call an investigator over here, and Izuku told them the same thing. They would keep this in mind, and then they would leave. It was dark, and the stars were out. The boys were getting ready to rest for the night. They laid down at their respective couch at Gran Torino's. Hey, Shoto? Yeah? What went through your mind when you accidentally used One for All in the sports festival? I don't really know. I recall really wanting to catch up with you. The boys would go on back and forth, asking each other questions of possibilities on how to use One for All. Hey, Izuku, I have to ask you something. Yeah, what's up? Have you ever boned another wolf during your times in the mating season? What? Well, as an animal, isn't it in your instincts to mate with other wolves like you? Izuku says, how? Dare you, Shoto? You don't just ask people those kinds of questions! He then jumps up, landing next to Shoto, and yelled, Bone! He then jumped up again on the couch next to Shoto and yelled it again, Bone! I can't believe you asked me something like that. He then jumped up, running around in a circle while yelling, Bone! What happened to me in the woods, Shoto, is none of your business. He then ran around the living room some more while yelling, Bone! How dare you ask me something like that, Bone? Suddenly, Gran Torino entered the room in his PJs. Hey, what's going on with the yelling? I'm trying to sleep. I'm sorry, sir. It's just Shoto asked me a very sensitive question if I have ever mated with other wolves. Gran Torino would tilt his head to the right and say, But isn't that in your nature? Izuku's eyes widen and it twitches a few times. And instead of yelling, he then grabbed a pillow, sat down, put his face in the pillow, and started screaming into it. Yep, that's better. Anyway, I'll see you two boys in the morning. Todoroki says, Good night, sir. After a minute, Izuku finally stopped and laid down on his couch, and Shoto said, I'll take that as a no. Izuku looked up at him and said, No, it's never really crossed my mind, to be honest. The boys then fall asleep, and the next day, Gran Torino told the boys that he wants to see them fight each other, but in their wolf forms. Are you sure? Asked Izuku. Yeah, now get to it. The boys then turned to their wolf forms, and they readied themselves. Begin! They both started charging at each other, and Izuku was the first to land a bite on Shoto's neck, and Shoto will retaliate by biting him on his neck. Excuse me. Izuku then distanced himself from him and showed his teeth and gums while growling, and Shoto would mimic his movements. Izuku then gets the upper hand on Shoto by knocking him over and then piling on top of him, biting him in as many spots that he could. But Shoto then uses his forelegs to kick Izuku off of him and lunge at Izuku, but this time he bit him on his tail. Izuku lets out a cry of pain and tells Shoto to stop, that he gives up, but for some reason Shoto keeps going. Shoto, I give up! Please let go of my tail! He doesn't let go. He only growls and tightens his grip on him. Izuku screams louder, and Shoto was stopped by Gran Torino, who kicked him in the face. He then lets go of Izuku's tail, and he distanced himself from him. Shoto then growls and, shows his anger at Torino, and Torino says, Kid, you better put those teeth away and straighten up your face. Otherwise, I'm going to take you to the vet and go get fixed. Shoto snaps out of it. Oh, what happened? You went out of control, that's what happened. Your brother told you that he gave up, but you didn't stop. Oh man, I'm so sorry, Izuku. I just don't know what got over me. It's fine, Shoto. You just need to control that animal instinct of yours. Be a wolf, just don't become one. But man, when you had me by my tail, I didn't know what to do. You'd be surprised how often a wolf relies on their tail. They are mainly used for balancing and social signals, and not to mention... Wait a minute. I think I figured it out. Figured what out? One for all. You see, this whole time we've been using it on one part of our bodies, but our tail balances our entire body out, and our tails are one for all. Gran Torino smiles and says, Yeah, keep going. So that means we have to let it guide us, let it balance us, let it flow through. Izuku, while still in his wolf form, crouches down and flexes his teeth and muscles, and suddenly a bright light starts emanating from his body, with neon green, red, yellow, and orange lines appearing all over his body. It then fades away with electricity flowing through him as well. Shoto watches in bewilderment and Gran Torino smiles. Huh, he's figured it out. Izuku says, I can feel it. I can really feel it. Shoto, you try now. Oh, okay. He then follows Izuku's steps and does it. They have now activated full cowling. Torino then says, alright boys, come at me. He starts jumping around from place to place, and the boys start jumping around with him, trying to catch him. And this time, the boys manage to actually keep up with him. Torino's eyes damn near widen when he saw how close the Todoroki brothers were. Soon enough, the brothers managed to catch Torino and hold him down. Good job, boys. Now we can move on to the real deal. But can you guys let me up? He gets up and says, tonight, we're going on a nightly patrol. We then transition to the boys and Gran Torino on a train heading towards downtown. While riding, Izuku was texting Melissa, asking her the normal questions like, how's your day and what are you wearing? Todoroki Shoto saw it in action and said, are you texting Melissa? Yeah, I just want to see how she's doing. You know, her and her father live in this place called Island. We should visit there sometimes to see the sights. You just want to see her again, don't you? Well, maybe just a little. Suddenly, the train let out a loud rumble, and then something then bursted through the wall, and when the smoke cleared, it revealed a Nomu. Izuku's eyes widened when he saw it, and he couldn't help but have a flashback to the first time he encountered this thing. Whew! It then let out a loud roar, and Torino then kicked it out of the hole that it came from, and told the boys to follow closely behind. They leave the training room and into downtown. They leave the train and head into downtown. There were Nomus everywhere, causing chaos and destroying and trying to kidnap people. But, luckily for the heroes, the Todoroki brothers were nearby to help. The boys would use all their weapons in their arsenal, using their fire and ice and calling in clones to assist them and the nearby heroes. Everything seems to be going good for them, but with Izuku's super hearing, he heard screams of agony nearby. He was so drawn by it that he didn't inform Gran Torino or Shoto that he was going to investigate it. And by the time they looked back, he was already gone. A few blocks away, in an alley, Izuku peered his head around the corner to see his classmate Tenya Ida laying on the ground with a blade in his shoulder, and another hero nearby, the native hero, along with the hero killer Stain standing over them. Stain would start monologuing about how ashamed Ida should be for being more obsessed with revenge instead of worrying about the injured hero nearby. It just goes to show that's how corrupt this society has gotten. You got these fake heroes with their billion-dollar corporations saying that they want to fight for truth and justice. That's a lie. And a quick FYI to you, kid, they're only in this for the money and fame. Ito would start talking about how he was mad at Stain for injuring his brother and that he'll never be the same again. Stain then said, your brother had it coming. He said, your brother had it coming. He says he does what he does for the people, quote unquote, when he really just wants the money. Even with all the money that he has now, he never donates it to a hospital or to a charity or people who really need it. Anyway, I'm gonna finish what I started with the native hero over there. And then it's going to be your turn. It looks like Tensei is going to be without his little brother. Suddenly, it starts snowing. Stain, Ida, and the pro hero were confused. When it got thicker, Stain's sight was taken from him. And Ida let out a gasp, and so did the native hero. What? What the hell is going on here? Suddenly, Stain's eyes was blinded by bright lights from in front of him, in the back of him, and even above. And then he heard the sound of a man speaking over a microphone. Stain, you're under arrest for the 23 kills of heroes. His vision returns to him, and he sees that he is surrounded by police officers and pro heroes to back them up. The police officers had their guns drawn at Stain. Stain was about to go for his hostages, only to see that they were gone. He looks over and sees that Izuku had them in his grasps. Stain knew that he had no way out of this, and he knew that he knew that if he tried to escape, chances are he would be fatally shot by the officers. And so he drops his weapons and puts his hands in the air. The police tackle him to the ground and put court cancellation cuffs on him, and even just for extra safety, they put cuffs on his ankles. Ida and the pro heroes were taken to the hospital. When the sun rose, Ida was visited by Shoto and Izuku, who came to make sure that he was okay. But Ida looked at Izuku with anger. Shoto noticed this, and Ida said, "You had no right to interfere, Izuku Todoroki. What was going on between me and Stain was between me and Stain." Oh! Without even a warning, Shoto punched Ida in the face. He then grabbed him by his collarbone and brought him up to his face. And then he said, "Don't talk to my brother like that, Ida. From what I heard, Stain here had you paralyzed and on the ground bleeding out. Because of what... because you wanted revenge for what he did to your brother. Well, my brother saved your stupid behind. And if it wasn't for him, I'm pretty sure you'd be 6 feet deep dead underground right now. So how about you thank him for saving your goddamn life? Otherwise, he won't help you." Even though Ida was still rattled by the hit that Shoto laid on him, he said, "Wait, help? What do you mean?" Izuku said, "I heard about what happened to your brother and what Stain did to him. I want to help." Izuku would use the kiss of Sira on Ida's hand, healing it. He would also then be taken to Tensei and heal him, and it may have taken a while, but Ida's brother was all healed. And Ida, now feeling really bad for saying all that stuff to Izuku, says that he is sorry and that he will forever be in his debt. But Izuku just tells Ida to always keep his head straight and to never let anger overtake his mind. If he can do that, that's all the things that he'll need. They'll be even. At the end of the day, Ida, Izuku, and Shoto became good friends, and the boys were given some credit for helping take the capture of Stain, and Ida would get none of it if he wanted to stay out of jail. The boys would go to school, and they would be congratulated by their classmates on stopping the hero killer. And Ida would also tell them about Izuku's ability to heal people. And a lot of people would ask Izuku if they could heal him, well, if he could heal them, I'm sorry, for some pain that they have been having. After school, Shoto suggested that they go out and do something fun, only for Izuku to object to those facts and tell him that they need to practice on the thing. You know, folk howling. Kirishima would overhear their conversation, ask if he could join in on their training, and Izuku and Shoto, not seeing a reason why not, would say yes. And then soon Yaoyorozu and Ida, basically everyone else, would ask if they could join in on their training. And so they do. A year... Hang on a second. For the past year, the class has been going to the Todoroki residence to train, Izuku and Shoto being their senseis. And yeah, I decided to let a whole year pass by because I really wanted Izuku to experience considering the fact that he has been a wolf a majority of his life. It was quite nice. The holidays, the family get-together, even the snow. It was amazing, but during those times, Izuku had other things going through his mind, which we will talk about later, possibly in another episode. FYI, during their training, Izuku would tell his classmates about him and Shoto's tethering quirk and wanted to know if it was okay for them if he could experiment with it on them. They would agree, just as long as no one got hurt. So over the time, Izuku and Shoto would master and manage to share their tethered quirk with others, but only temporarily. And the classmate would find it fun to shoot fire or ice out of their fingertips, and for them to share quirks with one another, like... one another. Anyway, 1 year passes, and Izuku and Shoto are now 15 years old. It's just 1 year. I may have said 1 year like 2 or 3 times, but it's just been 1 year. Anyway, the boys are now 15 years old, and during those times, Korigiri has been secretly telling Izuku what All For One plans on doing next, and Izuku would inform the police and pro-heroes. Now, obviously, people are thinking that Izuku is still with the pro-heroes. Wait, I'm sorry. People would think that Izuku is still working with All For One, and is just trying to earn the hero's trust and gather some important information to share with him. But Izuku has proven plenty of times that that's not the case. Anyway, every night, the boys would go on their nightly patrols and would stop any potential crimes, and at one point, the boys actually managed to stop a bank robbery before it could even happen, which caught the attention of many hero corporations around the world. They would come and visit Shoto and Izuku, and ask them if they would like to join their hero corporations after they graduate from high school. But the boys would always turn it down, as they would tell them that this is their city and they will always be here to protect it from scum such as All For One who seek to destroy it. But of course, with all the saving lives and school and nightly patrols, it was kind of tough for the boys at first. But they would always manage to pull through. And once a week, but mostly Izuku, would go to prison and visit their father, and tell him about their success and all the things that they've done so far. And obviously, Endeavor would be proud of his children and their hard work. FYI, Fuyumi has taken charge of her... Wait, I'm sorry, not Fuyumi. Natsuo has taken charge of his father's corporation and is currently majoring in business ethics. Business ethics, I'm sorry. For Yumi would move up to teaching kindergartners to high schoolers and would soon, someday, become a college professor. As for Toya, well, I didn't really know what to do with him, but duly note that he is a better person now. Let's continue the story. One night, while everyone was asleep, Izuku had a hard time resting. He felt so uncomfortable in his bed that it was hard for him to fall asleep. His animal instincts then kicked in, and so he sneaks out the back door and starts digging a hole in the ground. But while he was digging, Shoto walked up from behind him. Hey, Izuku? It kind of spooked him and he jumped. Oh, hey, Shoto. Oh, alright. Hey, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. It's just, I'm having a hard time sleeping for some reason, and I just can't help but shake this feeling that I'd probably be more comfortable if I just slept in the den. Shoto says, well, I'm sure we could find other ways to help you sleep. You don't have to sleep outside underground. No, it's fine, Shoto. I just really want to do this. Oh, okay. Good night then. Good night, Shoto. Soon, Izuku was done building his den, and he reverts to his wolf form and climbs inside and falls asleep almost immediately. Yeah, that's better. The next day, the next day comes, and the boys were in class, and Shoto would ask Izuku if he was alright, and Izuku would just say, yeah, that he's fine. He just felt more comfortable underground that night. Soon, their classmates greet them, and Izuku would ask Sue how her training is coming along. And she would comment about how spending more time in cold temperatures has helped her build up tolerancy so that she does not fall asleep so easily when it's cold. She would then thank Izuku for his help, and Kirishima would also thank them for strengthening his unbreakable ability. It lasts longer than 30 to 40 seconds now, by having him smash through thick layers of ice for many, many days and many, many months. The Todoroki brothers would tell them that, it's no problem and that they were happy to help. Soon, Mr. Aizawa enters the class and tells them that before they move on to sophomores, they will need to do a series of tests and attend a camping trip. Oh yeah, FYI, I forgot to mention this. Izuku did use his Kiss of Sira for All Might, making him better and actually able to eat things without constantly upchucking his own blood. Soon after, during lunch hours in the cafeteria, the boys were at their table eating and thinking about the possibilities and outcomes of these tests and the training camp. But while thinking, Izuku was hit in the back of his head. He looks back and sees Monoma, and he says, oops, sorry, your head was in the way. Izuku sighs and says, Monoma, let's not go through this again. Go through what? You keep trying to copy my wolf quirk. Well, it's not gonna work because you're not a Todoroki. Monoma lightly laughs. Think again. Monoma's eyes start glowing white like Izuku, and with a wave of his hand, he conjures ice in right behind him. Izuku was amazed. Oh, well, it's about time. Monoma then howled, and wolves and ice wolves come from the I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. come from the ice that he conjured. Shoto says, "Yeah, very interesting." As soon as everyone in the cafeteria watches, strongly believing that a fight is about to break out, Izuku then stands up and says, "It's okay. I got this." Alright, Monoma, bring it. Monoma then pointed at Izuku, ordering the wolves to attack him, and they do snarl and growl and run at him, exposing their teeth. As they get closer, Izuku then kneeled down, and the wolves' aggressive attitude changed to a calm and welcoming demeanor. And Izuku pets them behind the ears a few times. But, well, him doing this, it bewilders Monoma. But, how? They're mine! Izuku smiles at Monoma, and he looks at the clones and he points at Monoma, asking them to get him. And they do. They rush at him, and Monoma falls back, and the wolves threaten to bite him if he tried anything. Izuku would walk over to him and says, "Kendo, I'll take care of this." Monoma, who is laying on the ground, is too scared to move. He looks at Izuku, who's just had enough of him. "Oh, Monoma, Monoma, Monoma. What am I going to do with you? You know, for the past year, you have done nothing but harass me and my classmates, and quite frankly, I'm sick of it. You think that just because you got this power that you think you're a cut above the rest, when really you're just jealous that you're not in class 1A, which, by the way, is really no different than any class in this entire school. And you're insecure. You hate yourself, which explains why you never have anything better to do. Maybe you should, I don't know, keep up with your studies, or maybe be well acquainted with your classmates. You know what? You copied my quirks, right? That must mean you have tethered on you. Let me show you something." Izuku then lunged at Monoma's head, and he touched his forehead, showing him flashbacks to when his father locked him in the back, to when he and Shoto were separated, to when the wolves adopted him, to the night that they were slaughtered by All For One's creation. And that's where he stopped doing it. Once the vision ended, tears were falling down Monoma's face, and Izuku removed his hand from his forehead and said, "You need to have more respect for yourself and get your priorities straight, Monoma. Because if you don't, you're just gonna end up alone." Izuku then gets up and makes the wolves disappear, and throws his lunch in the trash can and walks off, with Shoto not far behind him. He just asks him if he's okay. "Yeah, I'm fine. But although I forgot to untether him, hang on." Izuku then managed to untether him without even having to use his hand, which explains why or how strong they have gotten with this power. Okay, it's done. Sorry about that. I'm just so sick of Monoma, man. Yeah, I know. I am sick of him too. So, how much did you show him? Only a little. I only showed him a part where the League of Villains Nomu attacked the wolves. I didn't show him the rest. I didn't really want to mess him up. Good. So, things go as normal, with everyone keeping up with their studies for the written exam. Only this time, Izuku informed Mina and Denki that if they do not pass, that they will not be allowed to be tethered with him and Shoto anymore, not allowing them to shoot fire or ice. And they didn't like that one bit. They enjoyed doing that very much, which pressed them to study harder. We then move on to the practical exams, and Izuku was told not to, share quirks with anyone and allow them to use their own quirks. And everyone would actually do well in this. Oh, excuse me. Everyone would do well, and, Mina and Denki would actually pass their test against their principal. When the time came for Shoto and Izuku's fight with All Might to begin, they were aimlessly walking around the city, possibly looking for All Might or the exit. I can't smell him yet. Okay, but still, you never know. Always be on guard. Suddenly, in the distance, a loud boom can be heard, and All Might lands in front of the boys. The boys then activate full cowling in one another, and the three men begin their fight. Man, I should really get some cold medicine or something. All Might is constantly landing hits on the boys, causing them to fly back and injure them, but the boys hit him back and do more devastating damage. They would also go on using their wolf forms and fighting alongside their clones to assist them in defeating All Might. But All Might is just too powerful for them to handle, even with the restraining cuffs on. After a few minutes of fighting, the boys stopped to catch their breath, and so did All Might. The boys then looked at each other, and Shoto yells, "Now!" Izuku's eyes start glowing, and a blizzard ensues, which temporarily takes All Might's sight. Well, from his surrounding, you know what I mean. He couldn't see in all that thick layer of snow. The snow then slows down, and All Might looks up to see the giant snow wolf. Now remember that it doesn't actually hurt people, it's just a distraction. All Might would try fighting it, while the boys revert back to their human forms and charge up one for all. After a few seconds, it was ready. Are you ready, Shoto? I'm ready. Let's do this. The boys then dash in with electricity flowing right behind them. As they get closer, All Might sees light right behind him, and he turns around to see the boys charging right at him, only 5 feet away from him. As time slows down, he knows that he can't dodge this, so he has no choice but to take it head on. The boy's fist then connects into All Might's chest, causing a huge shockwave to ensue, and it shatters all the windows in the fake city, and All Might flies backwards through the exit, knocking him out. When the smoke cleared, it showed the Todoroki brothers still in their punching position with their arms broken. As they pant, they both fall to the ground, and Izuku says, "We did it. Shoto, are you alright?" "Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. We did a really good job." Suddenly, it starts to rain, but this time, it was the boys that made the rain do it. Exactly how All Might did it in the second episode. It's the next day, and the boys and everyone gathered together at the mall to get their supplies for their camping trip. Izuku and Shoto go their separate ways to get their things. Izuku gets back to the spot where they all agreed to regroup. He stands there in the center of the mall texting Melissa, when all of a sudden he hears a familiar voice that shocks him to his very core that he couldn't move. Well, it's nice to see you again, Izuku." Izuku then felt 4 fingers scratching the back of his head. It made him feel so uncomfortable, but if I had to describe on how it looked, It was like a dog being petted by his owner. Shigaraki runs his four fingers all throughout Izuku's head. Shoto felt the same level of fear coming from Izuku, and he knew that he was in trouble, and he ushered out the store to find him. But with the adrenaline and the fear that was flowing through him, he had a hard time walking. Izuku started panting really hard. Shigaraki said, "Now, now, my little fluffy furball. Everything will be okay as long as you don't cause a scene." "Got it. I just want to talk to you." "What is it?" Shigaraki leans in closer towards Izuku's ear and says, "How is it that you keep foiling my master's plans? Everything we try, you always manage to stop it before we could even execute it." I thought to myself, does he have someone on the inside that is constantly feeding him information? How about I ask him myself, I told myself. So, I want to know, who is telling you? Izuku is quiet, for he did not want to give away Kirigiri. So, he stays silent. Playing the silent card, I see. Alright then. Shigaraki starts saying random names, thinking that he can get a reaction out of Izuku if he says the right one. After a few possibilities, he then gets a certain idea. He then leans in closer towards Izuku's ear again and says, "Is it Kurogiri?" Izuku's heart starts racing. He slowly gives off a shake as if an uncomfortable sensation crawled up his spine. "Oh, I see. I'm gonna have a talk with him. But for now, what do I do with you?" Shh. Izuku had a crazy idea. It might end up getting him killed, but at least Shoto wouldn't go down with him. It was a 50-50 chance of life or death, and so he goes for it. Izuku then quickly turned around and grabbed Shigaraki by his wrist with one he grabs him by the wrist that was touching the back of his head, and Shigaraki was about to finish him off, but then a flashback started. To that fateful day, he killed every one of his family. He sees the pile of ashes and the dismembered body parts of his mother and his sister and his elderly parents, and a man with a gardening tool in hand, his abusive father. While still in the flashback, Shigaraki continuously stared at the flashback of his father. He then lunged at him, but instead of killing him, he tackled him to the ground and started punching at his face while repeatedly yelling, "I hate you, over and over again." Slowly, his mind started to flash back to reality and forth, back and forth to reality and back to the memory, to the image of him punching his dad in the face, to him punching Izuku in the face, until the image then settled on him punching Izuku in the face with a few bruises and a bloody nose. Before he could contemplate about what is going on, he was grabbed by the back of his hoodie, and he looked back to see that it was Shoto who had him. Shoto then picked him up and swung around in a circle a few times, and then threw him a few feet away. Shigaraki managed to escape, and Shoto looked at Izuku. He was fine, other than the bruises and the bloody nose, he was fine. After some time, Izuku informed the police about what happened. As they let Izuku go, his family was waiting outside. Rei immediately hugged her child. Tears ran down her face. I'm so scared. I was so scared, son. I don't think my heart can take another scare like this. It's okay, Mom. It's okay. Soon, Fuyumi, Natsuo, Shoto, and Toya joined in on their hug. But a little bit before Zuko was taken in for questioning, he sent a text to Kirigiri that read, it was, they know, they need, he sent a text to them saying that they know and that he needs to run. But little did he know that it wasn't Kurogiri reading it. It was All for One. He then says, He then lets out a sigh and says, Kurogiri, I need to talk to you for a moment. And that's where I'm going to end this story. Man, this is crazy. Oh man, what is he going to do with Kurogiri? Is he going to manage to convince him that it wasn't him? But just, the possibilities are endless. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far to the end of it, consider yourselves #blessed, and I hope everyone has a nice day. Goodbye.